I don't know about you, but I enjoy watching videos about studio tours. It gives me a lot of ideas. I can see what other people are doing, what kind of equipment they have, what kind of space they work in. I have to confess that sometimes I have a little bit of lust because I see some amazing equipment that I'd love to have, or it's an amazing space that would be really cool to be in. Other times I get a little discouraged because I think, oh man, you know, that's what I got here is just nothing compared to what other people have. But then I also realize that what I have here is more than what many other people have as well. So anyways, I thought I would do a little tour of my space. Now, I don't necessarily want to call it a studio. To me, that just feels a little pretentious for the space that I'm in here. It's not that big, and it's really not designed for, let's say, mixing or mastering or anything like that. It has its own particular purpose. So I just call it my musical playground as opposed to a studio. And it's not that I'm necessarily playing around. I enjoy doing what I do, and there are one or two people on the internet who watch and listen to the songs that I create. So I'm going to give you a grand studio tour of my space here. The first thing that you're going to see here is that it doesn't look that big. I know cameras kind of distort and it's hard to gauge, but this room's only about 9.5 feet by 9.5 feet. It's a nice square little box. This being Canada, that means it's 3 meters by 3 meters. Okay, so it's a very small space. It's square, it's tiny, it's everything you don't want a space to be. So one of the first decisions I had to make was, you know, what am I going to do with this space? How can I utilize it? And so I thought one of the things I would do is I'd actually take this space out of the equation. So around on all the walls are little sound absorbing panels, and in the corners and everything there's also a lot of objects, bookshelves and things in the room to diffuse the audio so that it doesn't play that big a role when I'm doing any live recording. So there's just really not a whole lot here. Now, that's an advantage in terms of being able to play my guitar in here or do voiceovers, or the few times I do vocals. It's not great from the standpoint that a good room, a well-treated room, will add a dimension to acoustic sound, whether it be guitar or drums or whatever, that this room never is going to be able to add. It just can't. So one of the first decisions I had to make was to take the room out of the equation, to deaden it as much as humanly possible. The other thing, because it's so tiny and it's a nice perfect square, I had to really say to myself, there's no way you can mix in this room. It just isn't going to work. So yes, I've got some speakers and I have an amp in that, but I use my headphones to do the mix downs. It's the only way I can really survive and make it through. It's not ideal, but you know, you turn these on, and yeah, I can do the RTA of the room. I've got a microphone and the software and that, but the room is never going to sound great, so I don't even try to do that. So that's basically about the room. 9.5 by 9.5, dead as a doornail. And I don't try to do mix downs in here. Let's do a little bit of a tour. I'll describe what we can see. So behind me, as you can see, is my computer, my desk, my speakers, my wall, and everything. I have a PC. It's down there. It's actually one of those gaming PCs, you know, you can go to a computer store and they'll build something for you. So that's what that is. That's a gaming PC. And it's got 32 gigs of RAM and an AMD processor. And I got about 1 billion terabytes worth of storage on a whole bunch of drives. I think I have a half a dozen drives. Some of them, of course, are backup. So the computer sits down there. My screen, it's a BenQ, and I bought this because it's a true RGB screen, and I also do photography, and I wanted a screen that would match up. I have a big, huge Epson color printer downstairs that I print to, and I wanted to be able to know that what I see on the screen is what the printer's going to reproduce. So this is a proper RGB screen for photography, and I have the appropriate software on here for that. The speakers are tannoys. I know nobody uses tannoys. I think I've seen one person, but I've had, this is my third set of tannoys. I've been using them for well over 20 some years, different models. I'm used to the sound. I liked the sound when I first bought them. I A/B'd them with a whole bunch of speakers and found that I really like these, but I know that they're not trendy or fashionable, but that's all right. They're powered by an amplifier because I bought these before you really wanted to buy a powered speaker. They just weren't as great. So I have a Bryston 2B down below. It's a very old amp. I think it's the original Bryston 2B series amps. I had to recap it and do some work on it, replace a power transistor. Once upon a time, if you're to go to recording studios in around the GTA area, you'd find Bryston amplifiers there. So that's my amplifier. It has no preamp. It's just a power amplifier. My mixing board here, the Allen&Heath ZEDi10, acts as the preamp for the amplifier. So also down here I have a subwoofer. It's a Mackie one, CRX. It's not the ideal location, but then there is no ideal location in this room, so it's down there, and I've got a little controller right here that controls the levels for these speakers. So the amp runs into there where it has a splitter. It keeps the lower level frequencies there and sends the upper ones up here. And then I also have a little, because it's just a power amp, I do have another little controller back behind here to control the volume levels for it so that I can get the right balance between the subwoofer and the speakers here. I went with a Allen&Heath ZEDi10 primarily because it has 4 outputs, USB outputs, so I can record 4 tracks at a time with it. I haven't done that too often, but I have recorded 3 tracks on a number of occasions. So it's quite nice to be able to put a series of microphones or inputs into it, whatever I need, and be able to get multiple tracks all in one shot with it. Also, quite frankly, I'm used to mixers. This is where my world has been. So while I do have other interfaces, this is the one I've chosen to use. I also have a pair of little JBLs here. They're just kind of for low level listening, just to A and B when I do listen to see what's going on. It just gives me another frame of reference for my final mixes that I do on my headphones. I also over here have the Akai MIDI mix. It's I don't have it on at the moment, but anyways, normally you'd see all kinds of lights glowing on it so that I can do some mixing. All the labeling actually is for, I use arterial pigments on Reaper here, and so I have this mapped out for that, so when I have pigments running I can control the oscillators, the LFOs and everything right from this controller. And then I have the key step board. It's the 37 with and has a number of options that I never seem to use for that. So that's basically this desk area and keyboard. Over in the corner besides the amp is a printer, because this is also my office space. So, I have my files and deal with all those kind of things. On the back wall directly opposite is bookshelves, and all the books up there I guess I've read. They're primarily there, I guess, for diffusion purposes, and also I have my tax files and stuff that I should really be filing and haven't there, because as I said, this is my office area. And then in other places I have knickknacks and bits and pieces and things just to, first of all, make it my space, and second of all, to help diffuse the sound as well. So on that same wall, I have some shelves, other shelves, and a little drawer system. And then down right below it, I have 2 of my 3 pedal boards. I'm primarily a guitar player, so I have 3 pedal boards, which I'll talk about in a minute. Then over on the other wall, behind me here, is my microphone locker and my, I guess you'd call it, camera locker. I have a number of cameras and equipment in that. So the green locker has got my camera bags in it. I think there's 3 or 4 bags worth of equipment in there. And then the white cupboard up on the wall has got my microphones. I've got about, I think, 9 microphones here. And then below it are my guitars, which I'll talk about a little bit more in another video, but all but 2 of the guitars I've made. So I've built, I think, 7 guitars altogether. Yeah, I think I built 7 guitars. And I built 2 acoustics, a little travel guitar, 3 electrics, 2 of them hollow body, 1 solid body, and then a bass. So that was a hobby I had for a number of years. I don't do that anymore, but it was fun to build them, and I'll show them off at some point. Then I have 3 pedal boards. I have 1 pedal board, which is right here. I have a Mini Nova synthesizer, and then I have an API 500 series box with a number of bits and pieces in it. And then I have a pedal board underneath it, which kind of is connected to that system. And it has an MXR Timmy, a Stumac King of Tone clone, a Amplitube X Vibe from IK Multimedia, a T-Rex replay, which is a delay, a Fender Hammertone reverb, a little Ditto just to do looping and stuff like that, and then the Opus 2-note. This room is too small and this house is, noise gets all through it. So while I have a couple of guitar amps, I've surrendered to the reality that I have to use some kind of amp simulation in order to be able to record. So that's that pedal board. Then I have my main pedal board, which I used to gig with. It doesn't have a lot left on it. It has a tuner. It has a Sunface, again a Stumac Sunface clone, and then a pedal I built. One side of it is the original ZEDi10 Super Hard-On, which I have set at Unity, but it just adds this lovely overtones and harmonics that are just gorgeous. I'm probably the only person that can hear them, but it's basically always on. Then I have a clean overdrive, I have soul food, then that all goes into a CT Electronics vintage compressor. And from there, it can go to one of many other places. I do have a line selector to route things around. I also have the T-Rex Quint, which does octaves. And then I have a Joyo American, which is kind of a Fender amp emulator. Really nice sounding, actually. It's amazing for something so inexpensive how good it sounds. And I actually have 2 of them, because I have, my third board is my little board that I can kind of cart around. It's fairly versatile. It has an American on it, which I can do either amp emulation or crank it a little and get some distortion. It has a Boss chorus, a Boss digital delay, a TC Electronics Sky Surfer reverb, and then noise reduction, an old Yamaha noise reducer, because all of this stuff can get pretty noisy. I have a couple of other pedals, a volume pedal and then a Digitech, which does a whole bunch of stuff and none of it particularly well. So that's my pedal boards, which I really enjoy. There's really not a whole lot more to describe about this room. It is what it is, and it serves me well. I also have, on top of what's out here, like the Mini Nova and the computer and that, I do have a Roland MC 707 groove box, which I really like, having the 8 channels and being able to produce sounds with it. And then I also have the Roland SP 404, 401. 104, 4, anyways, whatever it is. I'll put the number up, but it's their sampler. I'm struggling with it. I find it complex. Does awesome stuff, but I've only, I think, ever produced one video using it because it is a bit of a challenge. Anyways, this is my space, my musical playground. I hope you enjoyed the tour.